sometimes the best way to increase your sales is just to help people and ask for absolutely nothing. And if you do that enough times, it just comes back around eventually. Somebody thinks about you and has a need for something and they reach out to you.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, we are talking to none other than Scott Leese, the surfer, the sales guy, the man, the myth, the legend. Scott, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Scott Leese. I've been growing and scaling sales teams for almost 20 years now. Was a head of sales, VP of sales about a half dozen times. And
Nice.
Wrote a couple books along the way, started a business called Surf and Sales, started another business called Thursday Night Sales, started another business called GTM United, ended up going full-time into my own consulting business. So
Love it.
I've done a lot of things and all kind of centered around sales, leadership, solopreneurship, that kind of stuff.
Right. Which is a hard thing for a lot of people to grab onto. And I'm totally amazed because you and I have been connected for a few years now on LinkedIn. How have you, a lot of people with COVID really got hit pretty hard with that. Tell us how you transitioned that hit into something that you've been able to launch into now 3 different ways to help the same community.
Well, I went full time into my own consulting business 3 months before the pandemic hit.
Perfect timing.
So there was a brief moment where I was like, I'm screwed, big time.
Right.
But what I thought at the time and what I feel like I realized was Zoom or, video calls or whatever, this was going to be like the new television channel.
Totally.
And if you're a consultant, you are in some essence very similar to like a talking head on Sports Center or, some news channel or whatever.
100%.
And so in order to get popularity and get business, you need to get airtime. So I just decided I need to be everywhere all at once. So I started going on every single podcast, every single webinar. I'm talking like 5 or 6 per day.
Yeah.
Right? And I was hustling so much that I think it just kind of elevated a lot of the work that I do and elevated my brand a little bit. Companies, when the pandemic hit, were suddenly faced with the challenge of growing and scaling in a remote environment.
Right.
I'm fortunate that I had done that previously.
Right.
So I had a little bit of knowledge and experience that I could talk about. So I actually was able to do quite well, right from the get-go.
Totally.
Because of that, it's kind of very fortunate and kind of dumb luck on my end.
I would say luck comes to those who are putting themselves out there. And so you were definitely putting yourself in the right place to have the quote unquote dumb luck. So way to go, Scott. Honestly, give yourself some credit. You worked your butt off to get that dumb luck.
Yeah, appreciate that. I also realized in kind of a funny way, there's no place for everybody to go after work and have a beer and shoot the shit anymore. So
right.
I was kind of early on this notion of micro communities and finding a place for people to hang out and commune and have conversations about career and sales and leadership and all this stuff.
Totally.
So, I created this virtual sales happy hour called Thursday Night Sales that became a community. And it was the longest running and largest virtual sales happy hour in the world for 3+ years.
I was part of it. I joined in on several of those.
And that kind of fed the funnel in terms of consulting. It fed the funnel for my event business, Surf and Sales.
Right.
And now that I've shut down Thursday Night Sales, I pivoted into a new community called GTM United. And so, I think as you look at the landscape, you try to see what's going on. You try to be a little bit ahead of the curve.
Right.
And you try to solve for problems that people are having. And people were having go-to-market problems. People were having isolation problems. They needed a place to get help and get answers and get coaching and just hang out.
Totally.
And so I just tried to fill those gaps and those needs.
No, I think it's perfect. I mean, truly, what you've been able to do has set the tone for what a lot of people are now, calling influencer marketing. But building your influence as a sales leader has given you this chance to help not just a few guys on the side, but literally thousands of sales guys have looked to you as a resource for how to do it better.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's still mind blowing, to take in.
Right.
But you do the work first of all. I
Yeah.
think it's important to note that I spent well over a decade just like doing the work,
Right.
selling, building, scaling, acting as an executive, having these kind of outcomes before I really put any time and energy into the whole notion of like brand building and stuff like that.
Totally. Totally.
But but I was building my network along the way, and then I just decided maybe I should start sharing some of the things that
Totally.
work and didn't work. And then the other aspect that I think that I have done well is I've kept myself really accessible.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that responds to every message that I get,
Right.
even if it's from strangers, unless it's like obviously spam. So, if Todd messages me out of the blue and is like, hey, I read your post the other day, or I've been following you for a while, I have a couple questions for you, I'll respond and answer,
Totally.
And so I think that part of maybe why people pay attention to some things I say is because they feel like they know me and I've had dialogue and back and forth, and I don't feel like some unattainable, person or goal or destination. Like anybody can do what I've done.
I totally
and I've tried
agree.
I've tried to maintain that,
No, I think you're doing a great job with it. And as I've seen your journey, at least for as long as I've known you, the thing that I appreciate about what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out in your own way, how can I have the biggest impact on my people that I can and make money doing it? And I appreciate that so much, because I think a lot of people go out there with these passion plays of like, hey, I want to just give back. I want to give back. But it's stupid you can't give back enough if you're not turning it into a profit center for you. And so as I've seen you evolve in your community building and in what you've been doing on your consulting business, stuff like that, all the respect in the world for what you've done. How do you feel like this new launch of GTM is going to contribute to that? Because it is a business and you have to make money. So what did you feel like you needed to change from Thursday night sales into GTM to kind of convert this into A, bigger impact, and B, something that you can leverage to grow and scale you and your influence?
Yeah. Well, Thursday night sales got to be a challenge from a time commitment standpoint. I spent every Thursday night basically for 3 years from 7 to 9 p.m., answering questions and interacting and giving back.
Right.
And I just can't do it. And my kids got older. They have practices, they have games, they have school events. And I'm just like, this is not really working. Right. And if you couple that with the change in the economy, primarily all the revenue from Thursday night sales was driven by sponsors.
Right.
Well, sponsorship revenue dried up quite a bit this year.
Yeah.
So, and then the third piece would be, everybody wants stuff for free, right? For sure.
Yeah.
But you also get people who kind of float in and float out when things are free, and they're not super serious about making changes. And suddenly when you make people pay for something, they're a little more serious. The level of commitment is upped.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I need to get away from the evenings so I can rebuild a community, which I've already done a few times.
Right.
I can host events and trainings and stuff like that during regular work hours that are better suited for my schedule.
Totally.
I can charge a annual fee, not an absurd amount. I'm not trying to price people out, but it creates ARR for myself.
Right.
Right. And the people who are there, I know are serious about learning and growing and getting better and that type of thing. And so it's all trying to figure out ways to provide some sort of like mentorship at scale. and kind
Right.
of guide and impact as many people as possible.
Right.
Right. But I'm not a philanthropist, to your point. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I need to make money and get paid along the way. And so it's just me tinkering and tweaking with different
Right.
models and different businesses and communities. This is all started for me like in 2017 when I launched Surf and Sales.
Totally.
So this is 6-7 years I've been, reshaping and playing with different communities and stuff. And now, with GTM United, in addition to the regular kind of community stuff and trainings and events we have going on, what we've done is we've built a product inside of it called GTM Assist.
Cool.
And what it is essentially a massive referral network.
Cool.
Because it's my belief that traditional go-to-market is dying, and the phone doesn't work as good anymore. The email doesn't work as good. DMs on LinkedIn don't work the way that they used to.
Right.
So what are you going to do? How are you going to get a hold of people and create opportunities and book meetings soon? Well, it's my belief that the only way you'll be able to do it is through referrals and partners and customer-led growth and community-led growth, right?
Totally agree.
So I've got this program in play now where everybody in my community works through me with all these different vendors who are looking to get introductions to folks.
Right.
And when we make those introductions, if any of those become deals, we get paid a particular amount, and the community member and myself split the commission. So I've kind of got this like win-win-win setup here where people inside the community, not only are we learning, but they have the opportunity to earn money.
That's awesome.
And we've sort of mobilized the community as this cost-free global SDR group, right?
I love it.
For all of our different vendor partners. So
I love
that's a big part of the plan right now and our focus.
Very cool. No, I think it's very cool. That's a very cool evolution for you. And it's got to be painful as a guy who's made his whole career on selling stuff to have a program running that wasn't selling stuff. You're giving it all for free. That had to have been like internally kind of a conflict. You know what I mean?
A little bit, but sometimes the best way to increase your sales is just to help people and ask for absolutely nothing.
Right.
And if you do that enough times, it just comes back around eventually. Somebody thinks about you and has a need for something, and they reach out to you, right?
Totally. No,
you have to be flexible. I have to recognize, as do you and everybody else,
right?
The way we do business today is not the same as 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
No.
And so I'm constantly trying to think about what's next.
Yeah.
It's not that things don't work at all right now.
Right.
It's that it's undeniable that they don't work as well as they did before.
Well,
so
and they just work differently. They just work. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode, but I also want to take just a few seconds to let you know about a project that we've been putting together for the last several months, and we're finally launching it, called the Captain's Council. You see, as a CEO or operator of a business, it can feel like you get stuck in your own head a lot of the time. You get challenges that you don't know how to resolve. You get people causing problems in your leadership team that you don't know how to resolve. And it's so hard to overcome those things by yourself. You don't have to anymore. Join the Captain's Council. Captain's Council is a group of other CEOs and operators and owners of businesses where we come together once a month for several hours to discuss the biggest challenges you're facing. You express to the council of 8 to 10 people about what's going on. Where do you feel stuck? And these other people are in the same boat as you. They're running and operating their own businesses. They're your peers. They help you kind of dissect what's happening and help you see things that you may not have seen all by yourself. If you don't have a good, strong network of people around you, come join the Captain's Council. This is going to be something that will change the way you run your business and open your eyes to opportunities that you have never seen without the help of your peer group. Come check it out, captainscouncil.com. Differently, and there's just a different set of levers. And I think that I totally agree with you in the fact that, email is less effective. A phone call is less effective. Even the DMing is less effective, still effective in their own right. But I think that this move to social selling and moving to gaining trust and getting credibility and people referring things is kind of the world we're living in right now. Like, you can just get so much better contact with better people through leveraging relationships than I think anything out there. So I think you're totally on track.
Yeah, it's network-led growth.
Yeah,
That's where we're headed.
Yep. I totally agree. Now, in this whole conversation, we've talked about who you like to serve and how you've chosen to do it. Talk to us about that growth journey, though. I mean, in particular, some of the things you've had going for a while, like your surf and sales sessions. I remember talking to you 3 years ago about your surf and sales, and you were telling me how it's evolved to that point. How have things like that kept evolving, and how are you turning that into a better delivery tool to give what you're trying to give to people?
Well, I've certainly dialed in the the format and structure of those events.
Right.
So they're very turnkey and seamless at this point in time.
Love it.
I know exactly who we're using for all of these different things. I know what our schedule should look like. I know the right amount of content per day balanced with the right amount of R&R.
Right.
We've branched out, and this year we're hosting the first ever Surf and Sales alumni only event. So only
Cool.
people who have gone before are able to come to this particular one.
That's awesome.
I branched out and ran a golf and sales event, which is
Nice.
just a spin-off of Surf and Sales, but with golf instead.
Darn straight.
And it was domestic instead of international.
Yeah.
We spun out the Surf and Sales podcast out of Surf and Sales. Sold, got acquired into the HubSpot podcast network.
Did you really?
So the number of downloads of our podcast is starting to increase and go up. And
nice.
there might be a time soon where we're actually starting to really profit from the podcast itself.
Good for you.
And the word of mouth about the events has just continued to increase and grow, and that obviously makes things like selling tickets a little bit easier.
100%. When you've got an engaged community, it's easier to point them into other ancillary products that you've got that are going to continue to help them, right?
Yeah.
How does that?
And that's and they're all like a lead magnet for each other.
Totally.
Right. You think about doing the work, which I did for a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that brings people my way because I've worked with people, and those people told somebody else that I know what I'm doing. So then I double down on my brand, and I start talking about the things that I have done, and more people hear about me. That brings me consulting clients.
Yeah.
From consulting clients, I can get some of them to go to events. From events, I can get people to join communities. And now it goes the opposite way as well. It flows the other way. People read my content, then they check out the community, then they go to an event, and then down the road, they're like, you know what? I need to scale a sales org. I don't know how to do it. Then they hire Scott. So they all kind of serve as lead magnets for each other, right?
How do you feel, Scott, as you work with your consulting clients and some of these bigger companies, bigger brands? How do you feel like this model can adapt, and have you adapted this type of model into these companies?
Yeah, it's something that I've been leaning into heavily for the last 4 or 5 months.
Good.
for the better part of this year.
Good.
And prior to that, I didn't really spend much time with clients building out referral processes and channels and just like partner programs and things like that. And now it's a huge part of what I'm talking about. Right?
I think it should be. I honestly, I've had some other guests on who have, shared their witness with me that like affiliate and partner programs are the way that they're growing right now. And it totally aligns with everything you've been talking about for your brand. I think bigger brands, and some of these guys are, 9-10 digit companies that are like, dude, we had no idea how much we were missing in trying to produce content. And align ourselves with the people that are going to refer business to us. I think it's perfect what you're doing. I encourage you to lean into it hard.
Yeah, I'm leaning in as much as I can while still doing the other things that I'm that I'm doing. But it's
Totally.
catching fire a little bit. There's more people starting to talk about this. The community has only been live for excuse me, community's only been live for about 2 months.
Yeah.
Got a couple hundred people in there.
Nice.
The actual product of referring people, GTM Assist, has only been live for like 10 days.
Nice.
But in 10 days, we've generated like $5 million, $6 million of pipeline for people.
Is that right?
Yes. The very first day that we launched it with one vendor, we unlocked $980,000 of pipeline.
What?
And we were just like,
shut up.
Thesis confirmed, right? And so now these deals are going to have to go through a process before they close. Right. But the confidence is there that that this is going to lead directly to revenue for these vendors. That's going to lead to commission payout for us at GTM United and then directly to individual people in the community, right? And these are not like, $400 commission checks. It's like, I did a deal. I'm waiting on a $31,000 referral check right now.
Right.
And if you were in the community and you had unlocked that, I would be splitting that 31 grand. You'd be getting $16,000 simply for introducing me to the right person.
Right.
It's not a bad gig if you can get it, right?
It's not a bad gig. And I think after you let the first couple dominoes fall, it's just going to lead to this massive migration of people going, dude, Scott's got a network I want in on, which is awesome.
I hope so. I mean, that's the goal. The more people that join the community, the more powerful this product can become. And as a member of the community, you can earn by helping everybody else.
Right.
And you can submit your own accounts if you're working W-2 for someplace. And you could get your own deals closed as well. So like I was saying, it really feels like a win-win for everybody. And for companies, there's no risk. Costs you nothing unless a deal closes. Nothing.
Right.
So what do you want to do? You want to hire 10 SDRs at $60K a piece? Or would you like to mobilize a couple hundred people who can act as SDRs at no cost?
And bring the deals in.
Seems like an obvious decision. So, it's a little bit controversial, but I'm sort of thinking about it and talking about it in a way that maybe this is the end for SDRs,
I think it's just reshaping what they're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? I think SDRs, to your point, may become a little bit more independent contractors and just bringing deals to people through their network. And so I think I can see that happening pretty quickly. In fact, I know a few people that are doing that right now who've had a great career doing, working their roles as an SDR, BDR, things like that. But then jumping into this, like, holy crap, if I'm an independent contractor and I've got to deal with these guys and I just bring the deal, that's money for me. So I see that as an evolution of the SDR. I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, let's hope everybody else does as well.
Well, Scott, before we close, I love to talk to sales guys because I'm a marketing guy. And when we talk about revenue operations, we talk, generally we're talking sales, we're talking product development, we're talking marketing, and generally, customer success is their own little leg of that table there. How do you feel like the best sales organization fits amongst those four? This is not normally a podcast question, but you as who you are, where do you feel like the sales organization needs to fit within the rev ops of a company? And I guess in addition to that, where do you see the biggest problems as you come in to help people fix their sales ops? Where do you see those biggest problems are?
I mean, people don't use the CRM that they have. They don't use half of the tools that they've bought.
Right.
They've got missing KPIs or huge holes in their data. I mean, I might say to somebody that I just start working with, like, tell me about your current customer base. Like, what are some of the common, denominators here? Like, where are they from? What size companies? This type of thing. People will be like,
huh?
They just say nothing. They're like, I don't know, you know. So sales ops, rev ops is just completely neglected,
Right.
oftentimes, especially at early stage companies.
Right.
Where, from my vantage point, it's the first thing that I hire after I kind
Totally.
of believe that I've hit on something that I can sell.
Right.
Like, I've always said, as a VP of sales, my very first hire was a head of sales ops. Not reps, not A's. I'll
Right.
just keep selling. Let me get this rev ops person in here to help me prepare for scale.
Right.
And so now we've got some things built. We've got the right data. Okay, I've proven I can sell this. Now it's time to hire a couple reps.
Right. Right.
But where do we sit amongst all the other departments? I mean, I'm biased, obviously, coming from a sales perspective, but it feels to me like we're the most important spoke in the wheel, frankly. You know,
well, you're definitely
unless you're marketing so well that people are just buying without talking to somebody, or your product is so incredible that it doesn't require any conversations to be had.
That's tough.
Salespeople are still necessary, even in a PLG company.
Totally agree. No, I love to hear it. I think when I look at the whole rev ops of a company, when I'm coming in on a consulting contract, I too look at the same types of things you're looking at, client avatar, which clients do you love, which clients do you hate, all those little things that help us identify the real target that they should be going after. But I see that like so many companies get into this realm of like, the founder has gotten them to this point, and now it's getting just too big that they can't have their fingers everywhere. And so the silos start to form, which is a good thing, but they don't know how to make them work together. And so I love to talk to other people who are like specialists in that silo and just kind of see, how do you feel like that relationship could work? And where do you see those problems when you engage with new companies in those relationships? That's what I was curious.
Well, it should work as seamlessly as possible.
Right.
And everybody should be kind of aligned and talking about these things. And we should look at the flow, especially if it's like we're talking about inbound leads all the way through to, upselling somebody. It's like, okay, lead comes in. How did it come in? What's the speed to lead reaching a salesperson? Now, what is our process to get that person closed? At what point in time is that client being onboarded? And then at what success metric are we reaching back out to them to try to, grow the account? That's the ideal way that it should be working.
Totally agree, man. I love so much that you came on the show today, because I really feel like growth and scaling and what you've been able to accomplish within your business is such a great example of adaptation and how do I better get my company to serve the people I want to serve. One of the things that I've always respected about you and what you've been building is the fact that you know who your avatar is. You know the type of client you're trying to get. And a lot of companies just don't. And that's what causes a lot of their growth problems, is that they want to serve everybody and they don't know how to dial it in to that core group that they want to hit. How did you kind of hit that mark? I mean, how did you know, leaving your big corporate gigs, I just want to help more sales guys? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I realized very early that I got more joy from helping other people close deals than closing a deal myself. So that's how I got away from being an individual contributor and got into leadership.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ICP to me was so obvious. It's like, what I did as a VP of sales was I took companies from 0 to 25 million.
Right.
So when I go to be a consultant, what do I focus on? Well, I fucking focus on what I've done before. That's what I focus on. I don't focus on something I've never done and don't have any experience with.
Right.
Could I do it? I don't know. Probably.
Probably.
But that's not the point. The point is, like, I have done this exact thing so many times.
Yep.
This is who I want to work with. And that's it. And you have to be willing to say no to the shiny nickel being dangled in front of you. That's like, hey, Scott, could you help us with this?
Right.
You could take that money and try to make it work. Right. But if you don't make it work, you might look like a fool in the process.
Totally.
And then you might have burned your reputation a little bit.
Yep.
right? So, and startups make this mistake all the time. I talk to
All the
founders all the
time.
time, and I'm like, okay, who do we sell to?
Yep.
And they'll have like, 5 customers total so far, and I'm like, who are we going to sell to? They're
Right.
like, well, we could sell to insurance, legal, real estate, bowling alleys. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We got to narrow this thing way down,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Let's get real good at one thing before we start trying to sell to 2,
Totally.
right? I
Totally.
didn't find it complicated. It just felt obvious to me. Like, this is what I know, so this is what I'll teach. That's it.
That's awesome. Well, that's a gift, man. And for those of you listening, I hope you captured some gold nuggets out of this, because what Scott's saying and how he's built what he is building and is continuing to build is exactly what you need to be thinking about. How do I better serve the people I want to serve? How do I better replicate what I'm good at? How do we as a business continue to pump out good products and services? This is how you do it. Understand who you serve, love what you're doing, and just deliver it in as many ways as you can to make you money, because that's why we're all in business. We have to make money to put the message out and help the people we can. Scott, I love asking for shout outs. Who's someone in your network who has kind of been there for you to stand as that maybe a mentor, influencer, someone that's kind of helped you get to where you're at today?
Well, there's been quite a few. There's the one that goes the farthest back is a friend of mine named Mike Lindstrom, who was a sales trainer for this company I was at when I had my very first sales job ever.
Nice.
And I had never heard anybody talk the way that he talked and think about things the way that he thought about things.
That's awesome.
He was very philosophical about it. And I just remember him telling me one day, nothing in life means anything other than the meaning we give it. And at the time I was just like,
that's
wow,
powerful.
like mind blown kind of emoji. And people had not talked to me in that way before as it pertained to business and career and work. And so we've been in touch for 20 years, I guess now. We were just texting earlier this week about an idea that he has, and maybe we'll execute on. So
cool.
Mike Lindstrom, big shout out to Mike.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, I sure appreciate you being on the show today. Thanks for taking the time. And for those that haven't done so already, make sure you're connected with Scott. He's pumping out content every day, and it's always valuable. Sometimes simple, but sometimes the simple stuff gets you right where you need to be. So, Scott, thanks for all your work and dedication to your community. And thanks for everyone listening in today. We'll catch you on the next episode. How did that go? Awesome. Scott never fails to deliver, and I appreciate his chill attitude, his amazing intellect, and honestly, I think the way that he approaches sales is so logistical, so sequential, so perfect in the way that he adapts things. And I just love talking to the guy. Every conversation I've ever had, I've walked away thinking that was a great call. This was a great episode. And I hope it gave you some meat into how you can grow and scale your program better than you are right now. If you're growing and scaling your business, you've got to reach out to people like him who are leading sales, leading revenue activities in companies. You got to know. You got to be involved. The other thing I would encourage you is to be part of the communities that you need to be part of. For Scott, he's got an amazing sales community. If you've got sales directors, they should be part of Scott's community. If you as a CEO or founder need community, you should be part of the Captain's Council. It's a no-brainer. We capture the minds of many different founders, many different operators, and we put them into pods where you can work together with your team to grow through problems that you're facing together. So much easier when you have invested partners helping you resolve problems as if they're your board to resolve the issues that you're facing and growing and scaling your organization. Scott's organization, fantastic for sales training, sales leaders, and building new revenue channels. The Captain's Council, it is the place for leaders of organizations to capture that unity, that community that you need, and the feedback you need to be making better decisions in your growth journey in your organization. thank you so much for being here. We're going to catch up with you on the next episode, and share this episode with anyone that you know that needs to hear it. Like, share, subscribe, help support us so that we can support you. And we thank you for being here.